In this video, we will look at 4 terrifying incidents in which people came face to face with bears and the attacks were captured on camera. Some survived with minor injuries, others weren't as lucky. As always, viewer discretion is advised. At approximately 6:30 on the morning of June 2nd, 2026, a bear entered an industrial and residential area in the Sasakino district of Fukushima City, Japan. Workers were beginning their shifts when the animal appeared between buildings. The first attack happened outside Fukushima Steelworks. Security cameras mounted around the property recorded the bear moving into the factory entrance while employees were still arriving. The footage shows a male employee in his 20s running across the open entrance area. A large bear appears behind him and quickly reduces the distance between them. The man attempts to reach a building or vehicle, but he has only a few seconds before the animal catches him. The bear strikes him from behind and throws him heavily onto the pavement. A passing driver sees the attack and moves a vehicle toward the bear, while repeatedly sounding the horn. The sudden approach interrupts the attack and gives the worker time to move away. The bear releases the employee and runs farther into the factory compound. Instead of retreating toward the forest, it continues through the industrial property where more workers are present. It then smashes through a glass window and enters part of the factory building. Employees inside are forced to move away while the bear searches through the enclosed rooms. Inside the property, it attacks a second employee, a man in his 60s. Witnesses later reported that the victim suffered bites and claw injuries to areas including the face, hands, arms, and legs. The bear then leaves the steelworks and continues moving through the surrounding industrial and residential streets. Police begin receiving multiple calls as residents report seeing the animal between houses and businesses. Approximately 10 minutes later, it attacks another man in his 60s at a different company, several hundred meters from the steelworks. The attack happens before the area can be completely sealed. An elderly woman in her 80s was also attacked near her home. She was unable to move away quickly enough before the bear reached her. Police officers, firefighters, wildlife specialists, and medical crews were sent into the district. All 4 victims survived, although one man suffered serious injuries, including fractures around his face. The bear eventually entered another factory and remained inside the complex. Police closed roads around the site. Nearby schools suspended normal classes, while hunters and wildlife teams surrounded the building. Authorities placed a box trap inside and attempted to immobilize the bear with a tranquilizer dart. The dart struck the animal, but the drug apparently failed to enter its body correctly. For roughly 40 hours, the bear remained somewhere inside the factory. Late on June 3rd, it escaped through a window and climbed over the surrounding gate. By the time officers entered the building, the animal had disappeared. The search continued after its escape, with residents warned to remain alert and avoid walking alone. The animal had not been captured during the immediate operation following the attacks. On October 1st, 2022, an unnamed climber was descending the exposed rocky ridge of Mount Futago near Chichibu City in Japan's Saitama Prefecture. He was alone and wearing a helmet-mounted action camera. The camera was recording as he carefully moved down the narrow rock face. The terrain around him was steep, uneven, and covered by loose stones, leaving very little space for sudden movement. Without warning, a Japanese black bear appeared from above and charged directly down the ridge toward him. The climber had only a fraction of a second to react before the animal reached him. The man had almost no room to retreat. A steep drop lay below, while the bear blocked the safer route leading upward. As the animal lunged, the climber screamed and struck it in the face with his fist. The camera shook violently as the bear made contact with him. The blow caused the bear to lose its footing. It slipped from the narrow ledge and fell several meters down the rocky slope, crashing into the vegetation below. The climber immediately began moving upward, attempting to reach a higher and more stable position. He understood that being above the bear would give him more control if it charged again. Within seconds, the bear climbed back toward him and launched another attack. It used the rocks and exposed roots to regain the height it had lost during the first fall. The man kicked toward the bear's head and continued striking it with downward hammer fist blows. He used one hand to fight, while the other searched for stable holds on the rock. The bear fell away for a second time but immediately began climbing again. It did not leave the area or retreat after the repeated blows. The confrontation continued in short, violent bursts. Each time the animal came within reach, the climber shouted, kicked, punched, and pushed at its head and shoulders. At one point, the bear reached close enough to grab toward his leg. A successful bite could have pulled him from the ledge and sent both of them down the steep slope. The climber kicked the animal away and moved farther up the ridge. His movements remained controlled because a single misplaced step could have caused him to fall. Eventually, the bear stopped advancing. It moved down into the vegetation and disappeared from the camera's immediate view. A smaller bear could also be seen farther down the slope. This suggested that the attacking animal may have been a mother defending a cub located near the climber's route. The climber remained on the higher section of the ridge and watched the slope carefully. He did not immediately continue because the bear could still have been waiting below. He then returned along the route from which he had come, instead of descending toward the area where the two bears had disappeared. Despite the repeated attacks and the dangerous terrain, he escaped with only minor scratches to his hands and a mild injury to his wrist caused by striking the bear and the surrounding rocks. No outside rescue was required. The climber was able to leave the mountain on his own after waiting until the animals had moved away. In the spring of 2017, Richard Wesley was bow hunting near the Fire River in a remote area of Ontario, Canada. He was alone in the forest and carrying traditional archery equipment. A small camera mounted on his head was recording when he noticed an American black bear approximately 100 feet away in the clearing. At first, the bear appeared to be walking across the area without paying much attention to Wesley. It moved slowly through the grass while occasionally looking in his direction. Wesley remained in position with his bow in his hands. He watched the animal rather than immediately leaving, believing it might continue past him. The bear eventually noticed him clearly and changed direction. It began walking closer while keeping its head and eyes focused on Wesley. Wesley attempted to frighten it away by standing upright, raising his bow, and producing a deep, aggressive sound. He tried to appear larger and more threatening. Instead of retreating, the bear accelerated. Its slow approach suddenly became a direct charge across the remaining distance. The footage showed the animal running straight toward Wesley. There were no trees or barriers between them that could stop or redirect the charge. He began backing away while continuing to shout. The bear continued forward without slowing. When it reached him, the animal rose and launched itself toward his upper body. Wesley attempted to block the attack using his bow as a barrier. He struck toward the bear's face and nose while trying to keep its jaws away from his head and chest. The force of the collision knocked Wesley backward onto the ground. The camera was thrown from his head and landed facing the forest floor. The struggle continued outside the camera's view. The audio recorded movement as Wesley attempted to prevent the bear from gaining control of him. Wesley later said that when the bear landed on him, he jabbed and punched toward its face and nose while continuing to fight from the ground. After several seconds, the bear suddenly disengaged. It turned away and ran back into the forest rather than continuing the attack. Wesley got back to his feet, checked his body for wounds, retrieved the fallen camera, and immediately began leaving the area. He survived without suffering any bites or claw wounds. His only significant physical injury was a bruised elbow caused by the impact with the ground. After the footage spread online, Wesley said he later returned to the area and killed the same bear. He believed its willingness to charge a person made it a risk to others using the remote family campsite. The original recording remained one of the clearest first-person videos of a bear approaching, charging, making physical contact, and knocking a person onto the ground. On May 27, 2026, 46-year-old Georgi Bijev was traveling through Romania while making his way toward Budapest. He was accompanied by another person and had been driving through one of the country's most scenic mountain regions when the journey suddenly became dangerous. His route took him along the Transfiguration Highway near the Vidraru Dam. The road passes through steep forested mountains where brown bears are frequently seen near vehicles, especially in locations where tourists have repeatedly stopped to feed them. Bijev and his companion encountered a mother bear walking close to the road with her cub. Several vehicles had already slowed or stopped, and people nearby were reportedly throwing food toward the animals from inside their cars. Bijev remained inside his vehicle, and began recording the bears through the open side window. The mother had already learned that vehicles could provide food, and instead of keeping her distance, she moved directly toward the line of stopped cars. The footage shows the adult bear standing beside Bijev's vehicle, while the smaller cub remains only a short distance away. Another group of tourists begins shouting and sounding a car horn, apparently attempting to scare the animal away from the road. The mother bear suddenly reacts to the movement and noise around the vehicles. She turns sharply toward Bijev's open window and closes the small remaining distance before he has enough time to raise the glass or drive away. She jumps against the side of the car and smashes through the partially open window. The glass offers almost no protection as the bear forces its head and front legs into the passenger compartment. The bear reaches directly toward Bijev's upper body. From the second vehicle, the animal can be seen leaning deep inside the window while the people behind continue using their horn. The bear appeared to target his neck and upper chest before attempting to pull him through the broken opening. With the bear's head inches from his face, he raised his left arm to protect his throat. The bear closed its jaws around that arm. Its teeth tore into the skin while it pulled backward, attempting to drag part of Bijev's body outside the vehicle. Bijev was still secured by his seat belt. As the bear pulled at his arm and upper body, the belt held his torso against the seat and prevented him from being dragged through the narrow window. The people in the surrounding cars continued shouting and sounding their horns. The driver then managed to move the vehicle forward, forcing the bear to withdraw from the window and release Bijev. Bijev had suffered deep bite wounds to his arm, along with cuts caused by the shattered glass. Blood was already covering part of his clothing and the interior of the car. He was taken for medical treatment shortly after the attack. Doctors cleaned and closed the wounds, and he later underwent surgery after returning to Bulgaria because of the damage caused by the bear's teeth. Medical staff expected his full recovery to take several months. He later admitted that stopping so close to a wild bear and participating in the roadside feeding had been a serious mistake. Neither the mother bear nor her cub was reported injured during the attack. Authorities again warned visitors not to stop, feed, photograph, or interact with the bears along the highway.